Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Elland Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott and I'm joined today by none other than Martin Riley. Martin, how are you doing?
Yep, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, nothing really interesting happens in my life. Work, pod, watch Leeds. That's about it. But yeah, I've had a nice couple of days since we last recorded, and tonight I've had a pasta bolognese for tea, homemade, which was very nice. How about you?
I'm back to my pasta grind. No, I'm joking. Well, I am not joking, but yeah, that's what I had tonight. Less time today. It's a Tuesday, busy working day. And so I had a bowl of tortellini with some broccoli and some garlic bread. And it was all right. I've definitely said those words.
Nothing wrong with pasta. Nothing wrong with pasta.
It's just a solid, safe bet, isn't it, if you cook it right?
Yes.
And I assume we both did, but I assume yours was nicer. Anyway, enough of that. Don't have any news. It's only been a couple of days since we did the review of Aston Villa. If you haven't already listened to that, go and watch it or listen to it. Preferably watch it and leave a like and subscribe and everything like that. Our YouTube growth has been pretty good this season, but we know next season we can step up another gear if we hit certain targets. So please, even if you don't want to watch on YouTube, just go and subscribe. Just go and do it. It really will help. That's it, really. We can get into stuff, can't we? Which is Manchester City. We don't have a guest. We did have John last time. I've listened back to that. If people want to go and do so, they can. But we will be covering some of the things said on there and a couple of other bits and pieces here and there as well. And it was part of what formed my notes for today, listening to John, because he's great at this stuff. Better than me and Martin, as good as we are. He's just John. Don't need to say too much about Man City then, do we, Martin? What's the situation? Who are they managed by?
Well, same guys as seems like it's been forever. Obviously, Pep. They've still got an outrageously good set of players. Obviously, like John covered in the last pod, have gone through something of an evolution, and the old guard of Guardiola's times have ended. Like De Bruyne. Obviously, John Stones is still at the club, but he's not more of a backup player now. To what he once was. And yeah, it's a pretty new look side from compared to what it was even last season. I think it's gone quite a big bit of change. Some new players, one young player at least has stepped up, and yeah, they're still just as good as they were, although still in a bit of an evolution, I'd say.
For sure. And I think that strategy can also be kind of defined by their January business as well, where they've gone for guys in their mid-20s, Premier League proven, and they have certain aspects of their kind of profile which really work, especially Antoine Semenyo at Bournemouth, who signed for just shy of £70 million, I think it was 65 million quid, his release clause. Someone who has sheer pace, sheer physicality, loves to carry the ball. And those are all aspects that Pep's gone for. If you look back to the summer just gone, a lot of the profiles they brought in were players that can carry the ball. So different kind of technical ability to maybe what you're used to seeing with Man City. Lots of ball players, lots of good players in kind of all phases. Like someone like Reinders, he's brilliant as a footballer, can do a lot of things to help you build the ball up, but can also score goals in the final third. They've now got guys who will dribble or carry the ball large spaces, and so their fullbacks are pretty good at that. Their wingers are pretty good at that. Most of them, quite a few of their midfielders are. I'm probably going to talk about that as well. The one player that maybe goes against that slightly was the signing of Mark Gahey for about £20 to £23 million or so from Crystal Palace, but I think that was an opportunity one. Not just a kind of signing they really desperately needed, because they do have a lot of centre-backs. But I think it was get an English guy who's in his mid-20s, who got a homegrown player before one of our rivals takes him, because he was in the last 6 months of his contract at Palace. And so I think that's why they did it. They also let go of a couple of players. Anything of note there?
So the only one was Oscar Bob, really, who went to Fulham. And then their backup goalkeeper Ortega went to Forest. That was about it, really, that happened in terms of outgoings. Nothing real of note to worry about. well, at least in their shoes anyway. Oscar Bob's a good signing for Fulham, to be honest, especially for the price that they paid. He's a very talented player who's got a pretty large ceiling, in my opinion. So they should be happy with that signing, in my opinion, for that.
I agree, and it's probably one that City didn't really need. I think they probably needed more here and now. And I just got a little screenshot that went viral on Twitter the other day. Went viral because it's got the age of Kushinov at 5, which is actually accurate. He is only going to be 5 years old. He's actually going to turn 6 in next year. And the reason for that is because he's got a 29th of February birthday, which is obviously quite cool. Every other player on that screenshot is 26, 27, 24, 25. Rodri's 29. Bernardo Silva's 31. They're the two oldest. Cherky's 22. O'Reilly 20. Semenyo 26 and Haaland 25. So you can clearly see that this is a team that they're trying to build to the future. There are a few senior players still around, but they're clearly looking at a squad that they can kind of grow together. Some of those players are actually a bit older than I thought, like Aitneri. But yeah, quite a fun team. And there's still depth there that's not involved, that experienced guys like Diaz, John Stones in their late 20s, early 30s, who are still knocking about, who are going to be important to this team. But it is very different, from the De Bruyne days, that's for sure. And this season they are second, still chasing down Arsenal. I said about Villa last week that I don't really think they're in a title race. The reason for that is because I don't think they're good enough. I think Man City absolutely are, Martin. And now we're going to talk about why they're good enough to maybe go the distance and what they're kind of trying to do this season under Pep. Talk to me about in-possession stuff, first of all. Shall we start there?
So obviously City have still got all the hallmarks of a Pep side at a basic level. So ball retention is always important and out of possession aggressive. But I would say the possession side of things isn't quite as important as what it once was. I think Pep has tried to find solutions to issues commonly seen amongst possession-heavy sides, and as a result of that, they can be very dangerous in transition, and sometimes I think they look to promote that. And I know, especially in the game I watched against Liverpool, that they were going direct more often than what you'd normally see from Pep's side. You should have to like to build through the thirds and do it quite patient, but this wasn't really that. There was going long to Haaland quite frequently. And recently as well, they've also adopted a bit of a change to the shape. It could be seen as a 4-2-3-1, but I think on paper it's meant to be a 4-2-2-2. Nice little homage to, I'm sure, Pep Guardiola's hero, Jesse Marsh, who has recently been active.
We didn't do a news section, but I guess that would have been it.
Yeah, who's recently been active on the old socials. If you've not seen some of his recent tweets, go and have a look. Yeah, he can't let things lie.
Doesn't like Sam Allardyce, I don't think.
No, and fair play to him for that. I don't really like him either. But so I think the shifts to the 4-2-2-2 is a bit of a response to the not having wide profiles that Pep wants to have, like with Jeremy Doku being injured especially. He's probably one of the few profiles they've got who is a genuinely really effective winger in wide spaces. I think you could also see Semenyo as that, but I think he's also got talent to play as more central like he has been doing for City and be really good at it. So they've been playing the front two of Marmoush and Haaland, with Semenyo and Nico O'Reilly playing behind as kind of two wide tens. So like I said, with sometimes Marmoush dropping deep, it can look like more of a 4-2-3-1 at times, but you do very often see the 4-2-2-2 shape. So the strategy here is trying to have two box players attacking, leading the opposition backline to being split and trying to generate space in the middle for players arriving into the box from cutbacks and things along those lines. Or alternative, you can make it look like you're going for a central attacking opportunity, so making out you're going for that cutback, but then actually go for across to the far side. That's a lesser seen one, but it was something which has been effective recently. In one of them again, I forget who it was. I think it's the most recent game that they played actually, and Nico O'Reilly got a header at the far post. As a result, this kind of thing. Look that one up if you can. But yeah, they're obviously full of rotations like Pep's sides are always known for, and the little details are always very precise with what Pep wants his players to do, and everyone's seen how angry he can get post-match, even when they've won, an individual player's not doing something perfectly right.
Opposition players, sometimes he'll be telling them how they improve. Yep,
exactly. So we all, well, at least us on this podcast, we all love Pep. And he's a fantastic manager and trying to find solutions to evolve City. So these things stay interesting, I'd guess, while also dealing with the sort of, I won't say midlife crisis that they're going through, but it's definitely an evolution.
Definitely, for sure. Pep, obviously a disciple of Bielsa, but someone who probably took some of Bielsa's ideas and bettered them. Sorry, some of these fans, that's sacrilege to say, but just
It's
what
true.
he is. He is, for me, the best manager of all time. I think the last couple of years have been a little bit more difficult for him. I think it's a testament to him that he finds solutions all the time. He takes teams through these kind of different versions and iterations of themselves. I think people will say things like, oh, he's always got good squads. He always inherits them and he always makes them better with signings as well. He gets a lot of money to spend at clubs he gets. But the reason he gets these jobs is because he's so good. And also, it's not as simple as you just get the best team and the best players and you win everything. You have to still set them up well. And the kind of teams in, not so much the last few years, but the kind of teams that Man City came up against previously, they'd have to find solutions to break down a low block, which is honestly maybe the hardest thing as a coach to do in all of football. And he's probably the best manager of all time at doing so. So that, for me, makes him the GOAT. But I understand why people have other answers to that, because there's so much that goes into being a manager, from management and then the tactical stuff, and then what you have to deal with in the media and in the press and individual players, like, and how their behavior, like all of those things. There's so many little factors that go into it. But on a tactical level, Pep's definitely, for me, the GOAT. Just wanted to add on to some of the stuff you've been saying there and really press home how, like, tactically flexible they've had to become, adaptable they've had to become. It's not just the shape that you've just gone into there, where they haven't done that all season. That's been more of a new thing with the signings they've made. They were doing more of a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 for most of the season, although sometimes they would obviously invert one of the fullbacks, which when you have midfielders playing at fullback, you're able to do. O'Reilly and Nunez are both pretty good at that, so that's why they did it. But now, yeah, like you say, it's the goals. It's the type of goals that really strikes home to me, is how different they are. There's a few set pieces, but that's not the main thing. We obviously saw that in our game against them when Guardiola put one in, quite funny. But yeah, it's so much more variety, like transition goals. Haaland obviously is a striker that probably is best off the shoulder and in transition, but I think his, like, we're going to play stuff here briefly, but I think his role is like so important to this team. He's got 7 assists this season, which I think is the second or third most in the league.
His game has developed a lot.
He's had to develop.
Like when he first came to City, some of his technical side of things wasn't great, but he's got so much better at it under Pep.
Definitely. And because they're so much less structured and controlled, his role is so important to their attack. Like, 2 of their recent wins, the most important wins probably their whole season so far, Newcastle and Liverpool. He got the penalty against Liverpool, fine, whatever, but he didn't score an open play goal on either of those. But he got 2 really, really good assists, 2 different assists as well, like a right-footed cross to O'Reilly against Newcastle, a header down for Bernardo Silva against Liverpool. Like, they're having to use him in different ways. He's having to find different ways to be worked as well, but it's working, and they are picking up wins in different ways now. And I think, again, this is just a testament to how good Pep is. So yeah, that's mainly what I would say. I've got some other points, but I'm going to save them more for the lead section. So let's go into out of possession now, Martin. What does that look like for them? And I know they dominate the ball still most games, but they still have to do a bit of this.
Well, of course they do. And they are still quite aggressive, although they're probably not the most aggressive in the league. But with this new shape that they've got, I find it hard to describe it, really. But you generally have like a unit of 5 pressing players. You'd have the front 2 in Marmoush and Haaland as being the front line of the press. And then behind you would have Doku and O'Reilly, and sometimes joined by Bernardo Silva. He would sort of push a bit further up. So you end up with like this 5 players. And then if the ball was played to the wide areas, and the fullbacks would also push up to put pressure on any players who are dropping to receive. So it is quite good, but there have been teams who have found the ways around it. Liverpool, in the game that I watched, were able to get around it at times. But they also did leave them exposed because they were committing too many players forward in trying to get around it. So that it is still going to cause us problems, of course it is. But I did notice some gaps that we can look to exploit ourselves, but I'll go into that in the section a bit later on. But yeah, it is an effective press, and it has changed over the course of the season. I'm not as knowledgeable on it as what someone like John would be, because I don't have the time to watch as many games as he does. But yeah, they're a good press inside as well, and will cause any team problems, especially for a team like us who don't have the most confident ball players. But we have ways around that, like I'll get into later.
When I've noticed this in every game, but when Rodri was out for such a long period, like the importance of their fullbacks on rest defense to basically cover like huge spaces was really important, and that's why they had two pretty physical and pretty athletic profiles playing there. Now I think they've actually lost something. That Rodri's come back, which is great, and he's going to help a lot because his just like general spatial awareness is very, very good, even if he's not the quickest and most mobile. But they moved O'Reilly into midfield, and like he's an amazing player, like off the ball because he's so like powerful, physical. He's 20 years old and he's like built like that. It's crazy, but he's so important for that. Really intelligent with the pressing. And so when you lose that from left back because they put him in midfield, it means that there's definitely some weakness on their left side, in my opinion. So that's something to pick up on and maybe something to talk about later on in the pod. But yeah, we'll leave it there on that because we don't need to go into loads of detail. The in-possession stuff with them is way more fun to talk about anyway. So, but yeah, recent form then, Martin. Since we lost them the end of November, they have lost 1 game and drawn 4, you've noted. That's quite a long stretch. I know our form's been pretty good since that game. Obviously, that was the turning point for us in a lot of ways, a bit of a catalyst in our season. But it seems like around that time, Man City really kicked into gear 2, right?
Yeah, they definitely did. Following the win against us, they went on a run of 5 games where they won, and a lot of those not really conceding that much, although randomly against Fulham they conceded 4. I did not get to watch that game, but I wish I had. 5-4 they ended up winning that game, and they only had 43% possession. So that's, again, an aberration.
They were, I remember this, they were XG'd a bit because Fulham only put up about maybe 1.5. It was a bit of a mad one, and they were 5-1 up, Man City. So there's some game state there.
Okay, fair play. But yeah, over this period, although they have won a lot of games and picked up a lot of points, they've picked up the most points in the league during this 15-game period, with 34 points from the fixtures available. That's including with Arsenal playing an extra game than them in that period. So Arsenal have 2 points less than them and have played a game more. So yeah, they've picked up a lot of points, but the numbers, the underlines aren't quite as strong as being first in the league for this period. This period, they're more like 4th. At least that's what the expected points tells us. That says that they should have picked up around 27.5 points. So 27, 28 points, and they picked up 34. And Arsenal during that time have nearly at 35 expected points. Even Man United had higher expected points during that time as well, and Liverpool had higher as well, so that they were the 4th during that period. So although they have still been very good, the underlying show it's not quite as excellent as what the points show, but it's a pretty marginal difference really, going from 1st to 4th. It's not like 1st in points and 12th in expected points, so it's probably nothing too much of an underperformance, but it is still there.
I think slightly able to sustain it when you've got, I think, the best shot-stopping goalkeeper, at least in the Premier League, maybe the best overall as well, but like certainly for shot-stopping, he's probably the best. And then you've got the forwards they have that can probably turn an average shot into a good shot more often than most players, so I'll give them that. Also, that Fulham game, I just checked, 0.91 XG for Fulham, 4 goals. So that was a bit off there, but yeah. In terms of the game plan then, for them, I might go first on this actually because I've got a couple of notes. In terms of what they might do differently to normal against Leeds from their usual tactical stuff. John went into a lot of detail on the last pod that we were on with him, Man City, about how they basically have 2 different ways that they open these kind of teams up. This is slightly outdated because obviously they've changed shape a little bit, but generally speaking, it's like about baiting teams in, dropping their midfielders in so deep that they actually have options to pass to, and then they can play around us pretty easily, even if we press man to man. If we don't, and we sat in a more of a mid block or even kind of a lower mid block, which I'm kind of expecting, and we don't press so aggressively, and we're a bit more passive in terms of the out of possession shape, then it gives them the opportunity to get the ball into players out wide, like your Doku's, if he was fit, Semenyo, Foden, those kinds of player who will be able to like break a team down a little bit easier. And that's kind of what it's going to be. So I actually think our out of possession structure is going to dictate what Man City do more than anything else. And I think in terms of personnel, that makes it interesting for them because they probably want some profiles that can do some of the passing, technical, around the final third stuff, like 1-touch and 2-touch stuff. But they probably also want some really good athletes who can cover large distances in terms of carrying the ball and in terms of being really physical. And so, yeah, I think that's why it's really interesting. And we were talking earlier about how they score goals. It's so much less structured than it used to be. It's so much less controlled. They are like happy to reside in the chaos like we are. So that's why I'm not 100% sure on the answer to this question, because I do think, like I say, it's going to be a bit more horses for courses. Their recruitment reflects that they've needed more ball carrying players, but also still kept some good technical players in terms of their passing range. And then they've also signed those physical athletes as well. And they're probably going to end up having to play a mix of those things to cover all bases against us so that they can kind of adapt to however we set up. That's what I would say. Anything else from you?
I think it could be a similar game plan to what I have been playing relatively recently, and it will still be that they'll focus on ball retention, but also look for more direct balls where they can. That although I think although Haaland is excellent, he may struggle if we've got BL marking him, because BL is excellent in the air, for example. So it depends on if he's able to get the better of that matchup. It'd be tough for both players, to be honest. It's a handful for either player to manage, really, at least in terms of the aerial battle. But I do think that it'll largely be the same, but it will at times look a bit basketball-y, because it's just sometimes the way that games against City have been going recently, because they have been liking to attack more quicker than what they historically like to do. So that could lead to it looking a bit different to what a City game normally looks like, which is usually a pretty controlled affair. But that's not quite what it used to be at the moment.
Funnily enough, the next question is about standout players and who we think will cause problems. I'm actually going to say a player that maybe people aren't expecting me to say, which is to go into a bit of detail about Nico O'Reilly. I think some people will be aware of him because he's broken through a little bit last season and more so this season. He was it was one of those where he had like a really high shirt number last season. It was like in the 70s, so like 72 or 78. And now suddenly he's got 33 and you're like, oh, okay, he's a bit more of a first team player now. Obviously, he's played most of his seasons at left back, and a lot of people are hopeful that he might be him or Lewis Hall really for England at left back this summer. But recently, he's been playing in what is his preferred position, which is either as like a box crashing 8 or even as an out and out 10. In this shape, it's been as one of the two behind the two in the 4-2-2-2. So he's been playing quite advanced and getting forward, and that's why you saw him score a couple of goals against Newcastle's first ever Premier League brace at the last game. But the reason I bring him up is because whatever style they choose to play, he is really crucial to them in and out of possession. Physically, he's got the capabilities to be dominant against a Leeds midfield that's got a lot of physicality, and they'll want that. But he's also got the kind of technical profile in terms of dribbling with the ball, carrying with the ball through lines of pressure, that I think they'll want that. He's also not a bad passer. The only thing I would say that goes against him slightly from my analysis of him is a lot of the passing I've seen from him, a lot of the technical stuff he's had to do has been in build at left back, and he's probably got a bit more time and space on the ball than he does in the number 10 position for Manchester City, where that space is just going to be massively congested against teams, unless it becomes basketball and opens up and he's allowed to like run into space. But a lot of the time it's going to be around the edge of the box, and you see bits of that, and like he's okay at it, but it's more the other two things that I've just said there, the carrying, the physicality, that he's going to be really important for. But there are loads of players to Man City, Martin, so I just wanted to pick out one interesting one that I'd quite like, and he's a very exciting player for England. Is there anyone you wanted to talk about a little bit there from what you've got written down?
So yeah, I'll just talk about just one player as well. It's obviously it's pointless talking about how Haaland will be. He's going to be he's an issue for any side to deal with, so a bit boring to talk about him. But Antoine Semenyo is the one who really puts the frighteners into me. I think he's got a lot of skill, especially with carrying the ball and interplay, which can really cause teams problems. And I think especially our defenders will struggle to deal with that. And it's not even just his runs with the ball as well. He's become quite effective at making runs beyond the back line as well, since playing in a more central position. So he has been making these sort of curved runs behind the defence, and those can cause issues too. So that whether he's got the ball or he's running onto the ball, he's going to be a problem for our back line, and definitely caused issues. He's got such good close control and ball manipulation. He's great. He's a player who I really, really enjoy. So yeah, that's the one that I'd pick.
Yeah. He's interesting to me because sometimes he doesn't look like a footballer, and I don't mean it really horribly, but like he just suddenly could choose the wrong dribble option and just look awful. Sometimes his passing is just like, what are you doing? But he's so effective because he's powerful and because he gets into positions constantly to take shots off both feet. He's 2-footed. And that is so impressive. And like sometimes his ball carrying is just impossible to stop because of his sheer kind of power, pace, and when he does get the dribbling right, close control as well. So yeah, there's also an interesting point about Bernardo's role. Obviously, he started his career at Man City as a right winger / attacking midfielder, and in this game, we're going to talk about the starting lineup here and what we think it's going to look like, Martin. So I'm just going to quickly make a point on him. He played the last couple of games more as a defensive midfielder, kind of alongside Rodri in terms of what it looked like on paper. But really, his role in terms of pressing is really, really impressive in terms of where he goes as well. So, like, it's their left side that's really impressive to me, O'Reilly and Silva, and what they're doing. Bernardo did an amazing job against Liverpool in terms of where he was following the ball around. And I can't remember the full analysis. I saw some on Twitter and some on Sky, and I can't find it now while we were talking. But just amazing. And if you want to look it up, like, search Bernardo Silva Liverpool and what he was trying to do, I think you'll probably find something. So, yeah, he's a captain now as well, since all the other players have left. And obviously, they had a lot of captains under Bernardo Silva's time there, but he's now the man, which maybe surprised some. But then it's kind of the way he performs on the pitch, so consistent, such a 7-8 out of 10 player every game. It's kind of a standard setter, and that's probably makes sense as to why he's been named captain. But, man, what do you think the 11 is going to look like against Leeds then?
I'm going to go with Donnarumma in goal. Backline of Nunes, Diaz, Gaihi and Aït-Nouri. Midfield 2, Rodri and Silva. Then Semenyo and O'Reilly as your 2 attacking midfielders, and Marmoush and Haaland up front. There is some potential that it's Kusanov. Is it Kusanov, the other centre-back they've got?
The 5-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. Kusanov, who could come in for Diaz. And there is some other variation that we could see. Reinders maybe could come in for someone, but I would expect it to be this unless they've got any recent injury issues which are causing them to change that. That's what I would expect.
Yeah, I found the thread that I was on about. It was search John McKenzie's handle and search Silver, and you'll find what you need. I'm not going to read it out because it's quite long, but I remember enjoying it at the time. All right, Len, let's get into stats stuff. Obviously, we're using stats from Ben Griffiths, and thank you very much to him. It's great. Shared it on Twitter previously, but go and have a look yourselves because it's really useful tool if you're someone who likes this kind of side of things and you don't have access to stuff yourself that you pay for. Go look at his app because it's great. Yeah, we don't use Opta. That's why. RIP. Anyway, tell me about some of those things, Martin. Where are they impressive? And I know the Man City are impressive every season, but where are they actually particularly impressive?
So the underlines aren't actually too impressive considering how good they do look at times. Their XG has them 4th, set piece XG 13th, open play XG 2nd, expected goal difference 5th. So yeah, not really the underlines of second place side. Then the XG against is 5th, the set piece XG against 4th, open play XG against 8th. So they're actually worse from open play at stopping chances than they are from set pieces, which is quite interesting. And then in terms of the more wider things like high recoveries against them, 15th. So that they actually do have a bit of an issue with conceding high turnovers. So that could be something that we look to target, but playing aggressive press against Man City could be a bit risky, to say the least. Then in terms of crosses into the box, they're 19, so they really do not cross all that often at all. But for passes into the box, they're 3rd. So it's a clear strategy to pass into the box rather than cross. Then in terms of pressing, they are 5th for PPDA, that's passes per defensive action, and then high recovery is second in the league. So even though the PPDA isn't one of the highest, well, it's close to the highest, but not quite up there, and high recovery has been second. It shows me that they'll have some games where they are really aggressive in the press and up the numbers, and other games where they're not quite as aggressive in the press. So it'd be interesting to see which comes out in this one. But yeah, it's the underlying did surprise me a little when I looked at these. They didn't quite match up with them being second in the league. But like you said before, the potential for Donnarumma to be doing some heavy lifting there to match things up. So the XG difference is probably closer than what the set piece XG, all that stuff isn't quite matching. But yeah, they're still a good side, but the underlines are a bit interesting.
Yeah, I think still eye test wise, I see them as the other best team, not called Arsenal. League table wise, the same. Data wise, still probably overall the second best team in the league, isn't it? Even with some areas of the game that you're a little bit surprised by. But we'll leave the Man City stuff here and we'll talk about Leeds in the next part.